What is up, YouTube? Back with another video, and today we're going to be reacting to Sunny V2's Dan Bilzerian has officially failed Good Riddance video.
Nothing feels better than winning when people are patiently waiting to see you fail. Dan, you've lost 1 million followers in the last 12 months, seen your stock price plummet so low you had to take it off the stock exchange, and now spend the rest of your time copying Andrew Tate.
Yeah, we're gonna start a website called Sigma Society.
While rambling about politics on Twitter. This is basically the definition of failure, and here's exactly how it happened. Dan Bilzerian took his company.
I wouldn't call him the definition of failure. I get Sunny V2's angle. This is kind of what he goes for. Somebody made a funny video the other day. Let me see if I can find it. I think it was titled like every Sunny V2 reaction. Yeah, here it is.
Today we're going to be talking about some random YouTubers who did something really quite minor. But since I'm a commentary channel, I've figured out a way to make it seem way worse than it really is by framing it in a way that specifically benefits me. I want to reassure you that what this person did that you've never heard of was really bad. Not just because the more negative I talk, the more views I get, but I also want to virtue signal that I'm way better than the person we're talking about, because in reality half of the stuff I said about the person is completely untrue and this whole video probably wasn't warranted anyway. I literally could not care less about the topic I'm reporting on, and I'm only doing this because I know that reporting on this topic will provide me with ad revenue, subscribers, and an empty sense of meaning.
So yeah, that was pretty funny. So I get the whole negative angle right there. Again, don't know Dan Bilzerian, don't want to say he's a failure. I'm sure he's successful in some kind of way, and obviously his downfall is he's not doing very well right now, but I'm sure he's successful in other areas. I have heard that Dan Bilzerian likes to lie a lot, so maybe that's why people hate him. I've never personally watched any of his content.
Ignite Public at a price of $2.50 per share back in January 2019, a time at which his career was going perfectly. His Instagram was gaining 400,000 followers per month, he was living in a $65 million mansion, and most importantly, everybody believed that his lifestyle was real. That would be until July 2020, 18 months after Ignite started, when Dan fired Ignite's vice president, who then sued Dan Bilzerian for unfair dismissal, in the process completely exposing his phony business model. For starters, the lawsuit explained that Dan Bilzerian hadn't actually paid $65 million for his mansion, but the property was rather rented for $2.4 million per year.
Yeah, so again, I wouldn't really necessarily call him a failure if he could afford to rent a $2.4 million home. Not a lot of people can actually afford that kind of rent. So he had to have been successful in some way for him to be able to afford this kind of rent, this kind of house.
On top of this, it was shown that Bilzerian paid for the travel expenses of the rotating cast of models that permanently accompany Bilzerian wherever he goes, despite Dan consistently stating that the girls were there voluntarily.
Do you pay these girls to come?
No. Okay, so
That's the big misconception,
yeah, I'm
right?
addressing that on my app.
However, the craziest part of the lawsuit outlined Dan's strange expenses, including $75,000 on a paintball field, $40,000 on a rock climbing wall, $60,000 on a Star Wars gun set, $31,000 on pool renovations, $50,000 on a bed frame, $15,000 on a ping pong table, and $88,000 on a vault, just to name a few. It was also stated that
That's a lot of money.
some business expenses charged to Ignite were for household items, groceries, and luxury yacht rentals, with a different former employee stating Ignite pays for everything. Models, events, yachts. Dan would just have it wrapped with the Ignite logo, and all of a sudden it was an Ignite expense, and he would send them the bill. Pools, trampolines, the employee added. His personal events that had nothing to do with the business.
Damn, sounds like this guy was committing some pretty fucked up financial crimes, if you ask me.
Dan responded by stating, "Some journalist said Ignite was funding my life. Bitch, I've been going hard for 10 years and been famous for going hard for 7. I started Ignite 2 years ago, raised around 100 mil, and I own the majority of the company, suck my dick." Although his arrogant response failed to dismiss anything, especially the company's atrocious financial reports. Dan had spent a total of $69 million during Ignite's first year in business.
Jesus Christ, on what? The company lost $69 million on sales of $9.7 million last year, according to its annual report. Oh, okay. I'm struggling to understand what they meant. So the company lost $69 million, but made $9.7 million in sales. The way that's written is kind of confusing a little bit. But I'm a little retarded, so I could see how I would get confused looking at something like that.
Which was offset by only 9.7 million in sales. Given the previously mentioned lawsuit explained how terribly this money was spent, Ignite's stock price plummeted by almost 90% from $2.50 to a low of 28 cents in October 2020. As the media began to report on Dan's losses, he'd respond by stating Uber is worth 80 billion. It has never had a profitable month since it started, and it lost over 5 billion in one quarter last year. However, Ignite's financial losses weren't even the worst part. Ignite only had an audience because of Dan's extravagant life, which as a result of the lawsuit had been exposed as rented. His lifestyle was once mysterious and intriguing, but
Yeah, so a lot of guys do that. A lot of people actually, they pretend to be rich to try and make it rich, like to try and sell you a course. It's a lot of dudes on Instagram and a lot of dudes all over the internet who will rent out an expensive car, rent out a mansion, and, you know, pay girls to basically pretend like they like them, and then they pretend they live this lifestyle that they don't actually live, and then they tell you, well, if you want to live like me, if you want to live this lifestyle, then you got to buy my course. And it's them really just selling you a course. Good creator by the name of Spencer Cornelia here on YouTube talks about that a lot, because his channel is dedicated on like financial fraud. His channel is dedicated on online scammers, so he talks a lot about that. Talks about how a lot of these guys just pretend to be rich and famous just to sell you a course, which it looks like is what Dan Bilzerian was doing here.
But it lost its edge as soon as people realized it was just another business. On top of this, the whole mega rich guy on Instagram shtick was cool in 2014, but by 2020 everybody knew it was complete baloney, which began to reflect in Dan's Instagram statistics. In May 2020, Dan almost completely stopped posting to Instagram, and by the end of the year he'd begun to lose followers. In the meantime, the media speculated that he'd soon file for bankruptcy, to which Dan clapped back by tweeting a skeleton with the caption, "Or the dumbass journalist patiently waiting for Ignite to go bankrupt." Dan was right, Ignite wasn't filing for bankruptcy, but that didn't mean that things were going well. After losing 69 million in 2019, Ignite lost a further 19.7 million in 2020, during which the media released another strange detail. Dan Bilzerian's dad was supposedly running Ignite from behind the scenes. Now this was a problem for one main reason. Paul Bilzerian was a convicted felon who was legally prohibited from participating in publicly traded companies. He'd spent a year in jail for fraud in the 90s, leading Dan to pretend that they weren't that close.
But I wonder if it was financial fraud, because, I mean, you can commit fraud, but was it financial fraud that he committed, which led him not being able to participate, or, well, whatever Sunny V2 said, run publicly traded companies? I wonder what his charges were. So let's look up. So stock parking case. In 1986, the government stumbled onto an insider trading scheme whereby Drexel Birmingham investment banker named Dennis Levine was exchanging inside information for suitcases of cash from Ivan Boesky. This led to an indictment of Boyd Jeffries, the owner and chairman of Jeffries & Company. Jeffries, cut a deal to testify against 3 individuals in the corporate and investment banking community, including Bilzerian. The SEC then went after Bilzerian, focusing its investigations on whether he had failed to timely make 2 Schedule 13D filings and whether he was required to disclose investors in his partnerships. In May 1988, the SEC began a probe against Edward J. Derbatolo Sr. to determine whether Derbatolo had illegally aided Bilzerian's hostile takeover attempts through stock parking, in which one party purchases shares in coordination with another to keep legal ownership separated and avoid either party's holdings exceeding disclosure trust. Then in December 1988, Rudy Giuliani announced that Bilzerian had been indicted in Manhattan by a federal grand jury for Schedule 13D disclosure violations with respect to Fluid Peabody and Hammermill Paper Company, and general claims regarding failed takeovers of H.H. Robinson. Bilzerian claims he was the first person to ever be indicted for 13D disclosure violations, as the hundreds of previous cases were civil and resolved with consent decrees and without fines or penalties. Bilzerian pled not guilty to the charges amid growing public controversy and demanded a speedy trial to clear his name. There were, broadly speaking, 2 different camps of opinions on Bilzerian's actions. After 2 days of deliberations in June, the jury found Bilzerian guilty on the 9 counts, including conspiracy, making false statements, and securities law violation. In September, Judge Robert Joseph Ward sentenced Bilzerian to 4 years in prison and a fine of $1.5 million because he now must pay the price for testifying in his own defense. Okay, so it seems like he was arrested and the SEC just kept going after him, but I don't see here anywhere where it talks about not being able to run companies. But I mean, it's probably true. I'm not going to look too deep into it.
I talk to him probably 4 or 5 times a year.
However, according to one article, Paul Bilzerian has taken a less shadowy role within the company, sending thousands of emails between himself and other top executives at Ignite. This was only speculation at the time, but if Paul was in fact running the company, he was starting to do something right. Despite losing $19.7 million in 2020, Ignite actually recorded a profit in their final quarter, leading Dan to tweet, "Ignite announces a profitable fourth quarter." I guess the press and the dumb YouTubers were wrong, shocking, the reason for which being explained in a Forbes article. For one, Ignite cut costs, slashing a promotional budget by nearly 75%. Pandemics meant fewer parties, and for Ignite that meant a chance at profit. As economic conditions improved in early 2021, the price of Dan's stock began to recover rapidly, quadrupling from 28 cents per share in October 2020 to $1.13 only 1 year later. In the process, Ignite increased its revenue from $16.9 million in 2020 to $78.8 million in 2021, at which point Dan made the claim that he wanted to sell the company.
$2 billion would be nice, because then I get over $1 billion.
However, the chance of achieving this kind of money began to look unlikely, as the value of Dan's company began to fall off a cliff. The recovery made by Dan in 2021 was completely reversed throughout 2022, owed in part to one particular incident. The SEC is suing Ignite Brands Ltd for failing to produce documents as it attempts to pursue an accounting fraud investigation. According to the SEC case, SEC staff have
Looks like he's going down for the same thing his father went down for. I guess it just runs in the family.
uncovered information indicating that respondents may have filed public financial statements that include false or misleading representations regarding revenues earned and recognized in the company's fiscal year ending December 1st, 2020, on top of potentially
He said that wrong. He said December 1st. It's December 31st, but...
falsifying their revenue. The suit also revealed that Ignite was under criminal investigation for something unrelated. As a result, the stock was headed toward a new record low. However, Dan was able to fix this problem by removing Ignite from the stock exchange altogether. He provided no explanation for the company's removal. However, just 2 months later, media publication MJ Biz Daily somehow managed to interview Dan Bilzerian's dad, who said he is now serving as an unpaid advisor to his son's company and was speaking on behalf of Ignite because Dan was unavailable to comment. He'd state there is no reason to have a public company unless you intend to raise capital from public markets, before going on to state though Ignite was publicly traded, about 90% of the company's shares are owned by Dan and friends. Dan likely thought that as a public figure he should have a public company, although this structure provided no real benefit and instead delivered unwanted attention from governing bodies and the media. Despite this, it was reported in March 2023 that Dan was still refusing to cooperate with governing bodies, and while Ignite's privatization means its income is no longer public, it doesn't really seem as though business has improved. Dan recently bragged on Ignite's Instagram by stating, "Best-selling vapes in South America," although the very top comment was, "Bro, I love you, but I never seen anyone smoking that." Ignite's Twitter page gets about 30 likes per post. The company's official TikTok page has under 4,000 followers, while Dan Bilzerian's personal social media isn't looking so healthy either. His main Instagram page is losing 100,000 followers per month, owed in part to his complete inactivity, only uploading every once in a blue moon. When he does post, all of the most popular comments state, "So sad you have to pay for having ladies around you, haha, lol, such a sad life, and I don't know why I still follow this dude." In January 2021, Bilzerian was asked, "Dan, why are you barely active over Instagram recently?" To which he'd respond with, "Cause I just finished the 25th edit of my book. It's finally done." Yet Dan
No, he's not active on there because his company's no longer making the money and he probably feels embarrassed. It's just my opinion. And most of his followers are probably bots anyways. That's another tactic that a lot of these people who fake it till they make it use, where they will buy followers. And basically, a lot of people also will buy the blue check on Instagram. Spencer Cornelia talks about this. He describes how people do this. The way they do it is basically by paying for somebody to write an article about you, about some music you did on SoundCloud or whatever online, and then based on that, you just request the blue check mark from Instagram, and then they verify it. I don't know the exact process. I know Spencer talks about it, but it's something along those lines. So this is probably what he did, and then he probably bought the millions of followers, and that's why he's losing a lot of maybe legit followers he had, or maybe the bots are being deleted, and so he's losing them quickly.
And failed to return to Instagram after the book's release. However, only a couple of months ago on the Skinny Confidential podcast, Dan gave an updated explanation for why he'd quit everything.
I just don't care. Like, I feel like social media is like a video game I beat like 8 years ago, and I'm like, everybody's playing the same game. I'm like tired of playing it. Like, I look at social media like a cancer. Like, to me, I think it's the worst thing to be happening to society. So I just it just cringe to perpetuate that problem.
Dan seems quite resentful over his social media career and is perhaps sick of being hated. However, I can't imagine his next venture will make that any better. After seemingly spending a bit too much time with Andrew Tate, Dan Bilzerian is working on his own alpha male course and website called Sigma Society.
The thing I'm working on right now is a site where it's basically gonna like teach guys kind of like
Sigma?
What's that? Yeah.
Sigma?
Yeah, it's gonna like teach guys how to be guys. You know, I feel like this generation is kind of like
There's the grift. There's the course.
lost that.
And while such a venture would surely find an audience, it feels like a last-ditch unoriginal money grab, which is almost always a sign of having nothing left to offer.
Yep, there's the course. Of course he was going to sell the course. It always goes down to the course. Just like I said earlier, these guys pretend they're rich, they make a little bit of money, then they start selling you a course. And we already have a million courses on guys teaching other guys how to be guys. Courses aren't even going to help these people anyways. But obviously, he's got to do it. He's got to make money somehow. So he's probably going to start back up on social media, because that's how you get these guys. You can't sell those courses if you're not on social media, because if people don't know about your course, no one's going to buy. So he'll be back on social media to pretend again with the fake lifestyle. And at the end of his videos, at the end of his posts, he'll just tell you, if you want to live like me, if you want to look like me, if you want to have women around like me, buy my course. Because that's exactly how these fucking bozos operate. Like Fresh and Fit, right? Fresh, if you ever seen any Fresh and Fit videos, you can literally tell that Fresh Walter is a fucking bozo. He's an awkward bozo weirdo. This guy stutters every other word that he says, doesn't really know how to talk, and I'm supposed to believe that he actually gets women. And he has a course in where he tells you how to get women. And the way he sells it to you is by telling you how he slept with 3 women the same day and how he slept with over 1,000 women. Am I really supposed to believe that that awkward bozo has really slept with over 1,000 women? And if he has, I guarantee you, like 99% of them were paid for. He paid for 99% of them. But that guy does not get pussy like that. He has no game. And they recently got demonetized on YouTube too, which was pretty funny. But they reap what they sowed, because it wasn't just their content, what they were saying, but they were going off of YouTube, like saying crazy shit. But I'm not going to get into that. This Dan Bilzerian video was all right. I mean, I didn't know any of this. Like I said, I don't follow the guy. I news to me. But he may end up going down to jail for the same things his father did, which is kind of funny. But anyways, guys, that's all I got for this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell, and follow me on social media. The links are always in the description down below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.